Within the last 73 years, F1 has raced across the world on all continents bar Antarctica. There will be racing on the coast of the Americas, racing in the dark forest of Europe and the deserts of the Middle East. During this time, there have been 76 tracks to host F1, and some of them have completely changed F1, such as Spa, and some of them were so awful that people hated them and they were gone after only 1 year. I'm going to focus on the latter. What are the 10 worst circuits in F1 history? To kick off the list, we have a staple of the F1 calendar. Bahrain looks set to host 3 season opens in a row, and the only time its only season slot was not used in 2020, where it held 2 races, one on the regular circuit we all know, and one on the outer circuit, nicknamed the Oval. There was another layout on the track, called the Endurance layout, which is now up on the screen. This layout was used in 2010 and would turn into turn 4 before heading into the oval section used in 2020 and then turning back on itself with corners that don't look too bad, but the track map is generous as the corners were effectively hairpins which completely destroyed all momentum and ruined the downhill sweep afterwards. Increased all flow through the lap and it just destroyed it. The lap times increased and was hated by almost everyone who saw it. This layout was only used once and then dropped for 2012. Ninth on this list sees us visit a familiar place as we go to Florida for the Miami International Autodrome in, you guessed it, Miami. This track runs around the Hard Rock Stadium, home of the Miami Dolphins, in a car park. The car park idea is something we'll come back to later, and if you know F1 in the US, you might know what this is. The track has 2 long straights punctuated by corners which kill any hope of a battle. The first half of the lap is quick and flowing, which as a driver is great, but for a fan it is not. Then it heads into a back straight which is more of a squiggle before heading into a series of slow and tight corners which ruin any chance of running side by side. This is best shown by the turn 14-15 complex, which is tight and sharp, uphill, and is horrible to look at, let alone drive, with sausage curbs lining it to punish any mistakes. Then there's an absolutely massive back straight with a DRS zone, which means overtakes either happen before the corner or are killed off before they have the chance to battle. The track has only hosted 2 races, but it has not shined, and it made everyone a little ill watching the pre-show with the celebrities who don't know the first thing about cars, an event where both kiddies are needed to be sold to attend. We travel back east, but into Europe this time, where a circuit Nurburgring rests in Belgium. Outside of it not being in France, there were no positives. On the Wikipedia page for the track, it's described as too safe, with 2 men in italics. That really says a lot. The track was described as being boring by the drivers and spectators were too far away from the track, with people not being able to see them racing and drivers hated the track. It was destined to fail. The reason why it was hosting the Belgian Grand Prix is because Spa was being rebuilt. After all, shockingly, having the risk of hitting a house was slightly too dangerous. I mean, it is great at stopping a car, but it is also great at stopping a driver's life. So, this meant that the Vels held the race in 1972 and 1974. After that, the track owners ran into financial problems, most likely caused by people wanting to actually see the cars and not just hear them. This led to track repairs not being completed and the tarmac making the circuit dangerous. Outside circuits of the past on YouTube, there's absolutely nothing to find about the track, and the Wikipedia page is only 15 sentences long, showing there's really nothing about this track, which is similar to real life as is described as flat and featureless. At least Miami has celebrities to annoy the fans, but this track had absolutely nothing. Heading back into the Middle East, we have Abu Dhabi, but pre-2021. The track is one that we all know well as it has hosted the season finale so many times, and this video is actually coming out hours after the season finale here. The track was slightly different as it had a chicane just before the hairpin, and then headed down the second long straight. It was finished by a triple chicane, which after that was a 90-degree right-hander, which had absolutely no character to it. Sector 3 just had corners that were slightly tighter than the current layout and was made most famous by Fernando Alonso losing the 2010 title after not being able to get past the Renault for half the race, even with a pace advantage, and going off track a couple of times. This led to, in early 2021, after years of criticism by pundits, fans and drivers, it was announced that changes would be made to the track, and this would lead to the 2021 season finale, where Michael Massey decided to go on a great adventure before then making the world burn. Heading back to Europe, and this time for the Iberian Peninsula for the Valencia Street Circuit. In 2007, the track was announced for a 7-year deal starting in 2008, and the track would see itself race around the most glamorous of locations, a fish market. Monaco has a Mediterranean, Las Vegas is the entertainment and nightlife capital of the world, and Spa, Silverstone, Monza have history, and Valencia had a fish market. The track was uninspiring at best, with the track only being wider than Monaco, but still lacking overtakes due to dirt and dust being on the track. After DRS was introduced for 2011, only 5 overtakes were made in that race, and the track was made infamous by Mark Webber taking Red Bull Gives You Wings way too literally when he backflipped over Heikki Kovalainen. The track did not see out its contract, with the last race being in 2012 after a contract to all set with Circuit de Catalunya fell through, with the races being boring and unpopular with everyone. 5th place is Avis, which held the German Grand Prix in 1959, where the track was effectively just going down a section of the Autobahn before going through a hairpin and then back the other way. Originally, the track was 15 kilometres long, and after realising the cars at the time were more of a bathtub of fuel which would often break and crash, the circuit length was shortened to 8 kilometres. This meant the run was 2 times the length of the Las Vegas Strip in both directions. The lap was ended by a bank corner that was made up of bricks, which was 43 degrees banking. This is 4 times the banking in Indianapolis. Drivers would head into this corner at 250 km an hour in a bathtub of fuel, which would break if you stared at it for too long, and take this through a corner, which any failure would result in you meeting your maker. The track would host the 1959 German Grand Prix and would see 2 drivers not starting, with Wolfgang von Trips withdrawing and Jean Behra was killed in a support race. Only 7 cars finished the race, and one of the drivers, Hans Hermann, would crash after hitting a hay bale and would slide down the track. But he wasn't in his car, he was thrown out, and he survived it. I don't know how, this almost gave me a stroke trying to work this one out, but anyway, Ferrari won the race and they claimed all 3 podium spots because they had 3 cars entered into that race. Avis was not a bad track for top speed runs, but it was bad if you wanted to live, so it earned its place here. When F1 said it was heading to Le Mans, it meant that the cars would blast down the Mulsanne straight, but this would not occur as it was decided that the cars would race on the Bugatti circuit. The track would effectively head towards the Dunlop curves before turning into the infield, and then head into a hairpin, another slightly longer hairpin. In total there were 6 hairpins, and all but 2 of the corners on the track were hairpins. Turn 7 was a double 90-degree corner, which basically was a hairpin in itself. Only 20,000 people turned up for the race, but with a name like Le Mans, you would think it would draw in many more people, but that obviously failed. But the drivers disliked the track a lot due to effectively being a series of hairpins, and after visiting tracks like Monza, Spa and the Nurburgring, it was much more boring. Something interesting about the Bugatti circuit is that the Mulsanne Straight, which is maybe the most famous part of Le Mans, was 1.3 kilometres longer than the Bugatti circuit itself. Due to the dislike of the track by fans and drivers, it never returned after 1967. We head back to America for the bottom spot of the podium with the Dallas Grand Prix in Texas, and with a track with a total of 23 corners, it heads around the Fair Park of Dallas, and with it being the south of the US and in the peak of the summer, the race was very hot. The track was also uninspiring like many others on this list, with it looking like a design that someone would make at 5 years old. The biggest problem was the track itself, as the heat meant the track began to melt and disintegrate, leading to more problems with the track being covered in dust and gravel. It was described as being more of a rallycross track, and this meant that people wanted it cancelled. This did not happen, and under the Texan sun, only 8 cars finished, due to the heat of the track's poor condition leading people to spin out of the race. The track was then made famous when Nigel Mansell collapsed pushing his car at the end of the race due to exhaustion. Due to the track disintegrating and the fact that people were in danger of death due to the heat, it only hosted 1 race, but it was replaced by Australia the next year, so it wasn't all bad, and for the same reason the track was dropped, it earned its place for 3rd on this list. Staying in the United States, we move over to Las Vegas for the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, which was held in 1981 and 1982. The track was an E-shape and was found to be boring and repetitive by the drivers, as all the corners were basically the same, and for the same reason it led to breaking points being difficult to find, as there were absolutely no markers around the track. It was also anti-clockwise, which put a lot of strain on the drivers' necks, leading drivers to enjoy it less. The track was also in the middle of the Nevada desert, so it had massive amounts of sand and dust on the track, leading to a race that was boring and had little action. In 1981 it lost a lot of money, and even worse, it was a season finale which killed all hope for a dramatic ending where it was a three-way battle for the title. The following year was much the same, and thankfully it was dropped for the following year and never returned. The worst track in F1 history, however, was the Austrian track of Silverstone, just across the road from the Red Bull Ring. At the end of World War II, it was decided that Austria would become neutral, just like Switzerland, and therefore it had no one to protect it from any outside threats, so it built a military, including many air bases across the country. People were interested in a Silverstone-esque circuit on the airbase, just like Silverstone, but the airfield was not concrete or asphalt, but concrete slabs. This meant that over time, the slabs would wear or be lifted up, causing massive gaps in the slabs. This included space in between the slabs, and they would raise up occasionally, just like a ramp. When they were creating the layout, they decided to create the worst possible track. It had a half-kilometre run into turn 1, which was a 90-degree right-hander before heading into a double right-hander, which acted more like a hairpin. There was a 90-degree left-hander which headed down the back straight, which was only 20 metres away from the start-finish straight, which led to the pits being separated from the back straight by a couple of hay bales. That's not good. Then there was a right-handed hairpin to end the lap. The slabs that covered the track caused chaos as they made the Formula of 2022 look like a non-existent issue. This caused 4 suspension-related problems due to many cars bouncing violently over the slabs, which also caused injury to the drivers with them bouncing constantly. This led the track to be only used for one race and then dropped, with the only good thing that happened was Lorenzo Bernardini winning his only race. Thank you so much for watching. This video is heavily inspired by Josh Revel's video a couple of years ago about his 10 worst tracks in F1, and I actually learnt a lot about Zandvoort from his video. But I'm just going to say something quite personal now, because this last week in the F1 community has probably been my best ever. I hit 500 subscribers on this channel, and over on Instagram I got 1 million views on one video, which is just absolutely mind-boggling for me, and it's just great to see. I've also got a load of other projects going on with other creators on Instagram, and it's just really, really good how I'm just really proud of the fact that I've managed to grow and all this growth that's happening, all these collaborations, and just feel like it's been quite a successful week. I feel quite fulfilled. It's carved my dream to get to this point, and hopefully now it's just going to keep on growing. So I'm sorry that I've got all sentimental about this at the end of the video, so just ignore all that. But if you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you have not enjoyed this video, please tell me why in the comments below and what I can improve on. And that's it, I'll see you later.